has been estimated that the average person will spend 1/3 of their life at work. Honestly, that kind of information is what made me want to wake up and realize that I don't want to spend that time miserable. And that's exactly where I was 4 years ago when I was in a different career. And since changing careers, I can confidently say that I am happier and more fulfilled. So in this video, I'm going to show you my 5-step process on how I went from customer relations to UX designer working at a tech company. As a friendly reminder, and especially if you follow me and this channel, you know I like to keep it real. So just know that we all have completely different circumstances. And I'm not gonna sit here and car sales you with my mustache saying this is 100% going to work. But hopefully by showing you what I did, you can take bits and pieces of it and apply it to your current situation, and also hopefully gain strength to finally change your career. Step number 1 is to evaluate your current situation. This step is really important because it's all about identifying whether or not a career change is worth it right now. So the big question here is, how dissatisfied are you with your current career? And I know you're probably like, Mimi, I wouldn't have clicked on this video if my current situation wasn't Dante's 9 circles.
How?
And I totally get that, but if your answer is not Satan level miserable, then ask yourself this. Have you done everything that you can? If it's just your boss, have you tried to work it out internally? Maybe you switched companies. If it's daily responsibilities that you're not really loving, have you asked to change those things up? But if you genuinely feel like you've given everything a chance and you're like, I have gone over this multiple times and have switched way too many times at this point, and absolutely nothing has changed for you, then I feel you. For me personally, I knew it was really bad because it was bleeding into other aspects of my life. I was either working too late or burning myself out, getting underpaid, and just full on slugging out. So if any of those boxes are checked and you felt like you've been around the block and you've done everything in your power, then step 1 of identifying and accepting the fact that it's time to move on has been completed, and it's time to go to step number 2. Understanding your skills, your loves, and your hates. Not gonna lie, going into a new career is pretty intimidating. But what was scary to me about joining a new career is that I knew I was going to feel a lot more behind than everyone else. So to fill that gap of insecurity, it was really important for me to ground myself and understand all the things that I was good at, all the things that maybe I needed improvement on, and things that were absolute deal breakers for me, so I knew that I wouldn't lose myself in this entire process. One of my biggest things about changing careers was I just knew I didn't want to go through all of this work and potential money and time just to hate a career all over again. So I really took the time to explore what I was good at and really reflect on those. I even took a few tests. I remember taking the Gallup strength test, which I'll put in the description below. I think it's like $14 to take, so I highly recommend that. I also wrote out a big list of things that I just love to do. I knew that I loved analyzing, investigating, writing, planning, and things that I also hated, which is definitely math. I am not a numbers person. I also remember putting, I don't want any pressure or responsibility of someone's life being on my hands. And I knew I wasn't gonna be a doctor or go into the medical field, but it's good to just write these things down. So this was really helpful because it set a foundation for me and it really narrowed the scope on what type of careers that I should explore into next. Once I did that, it was time for the fun part in step 3, which is career dating. So I essentially started speed dating, not people, but careers. And what I mean by that is it's just as simple as putting into Google all the things that I love to do, things that I was looking for, and what kind of careers fall into those categories. And then it was really just up to the interwebs to take me down a black hole. I think over the course of 5 months, I narrowed it down to my top candidates. And from there, I took it to the next level. What I mean by that is there are 2 things that I did to really drill down into these careers more to make sure that I felt confident going into them. Number 1 was LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like one of the most powerful tools that I use during a career search. What I would do is I'd go on LinkedIn and I type in the specific career that I was looking into. Some people came up in my first connections, my second connections, and then very shocking to even myself because I'm an introvert, I started messaging them. And then I shot them a quick message just saying that I was researching their career and trying to understand a bit more about it. Honestly, at first I was really nervous about doing this because most of them were actual complete strangers, but people were really, really nice. That's why this part of career dating I think is really important, because you can read about job descriptions all you want on Google, look at different articles, but for me at least, what was so important was understanding personal stories and experiences about these careers and reasons why these people decided to go into them. My second mini tip here when it comes to drilling down and understanding your career is not putting all your research eggs into one basket. I've only been a content creator for a year, but I've noticed such an interesting shift between how people research careers. They might just only look at TikTok, or you might only look at YouTube to figure out which career you want to go into. But I highly recommend that you spread yourself through every single channel to gain multiple different perspectives. When I first started this journey back in 2018, we didn't have TikTok then, but I was only looking at day in the lives on YouTube, and now we have day in the lives on TikTok, and I spent my time a lot on Medium articles as well. But I highly recommend like diversifying, even looking at Reddit. Once I decided on that career and I overcame all of my fears and anxieties, and that's a whole separate video that I actually have, so if you want to check it out, I'll link it in my descriptions. Then it was time to move on to step 4, which is upgrading your skills. Now that I chose the career that I wanted to go into, it was time to understand if there are any hard skills that were a requirement before I went into the job market. And I needed to understand, like, did I need to go back to school full time? Were there boot camps out there? Is this something that I need to learn all by myself? I knew I didn't want to go back to school because as soon as I graduated from college, I always knew that I didn't really have the money, and I honestly didn't really feel like putting in the time, but I also knew that I couldn't teach myself because I'm a much more of a structured learner, and so I ultimately went with like the kind of in between, which was the boot camp. At least for UX boot camps that I was looking at, it still costs a pretty penny. If you're not ready to commit in terms of like UX design, there's always free courses out there that are really great to just dip your toes into. If you're interested in using a 7-day free trial for SKILLSHARE, which has a bunch of really great UX UI courses, feel free to use my description below, and that supports my channel. So the bootcamp that I joined really did set me up for success because it helped me create an online portfolio and case studies, which I had to have in order to apply to be a UX designer. What was awesome is that they also gave me a career coach when it was time to apply. Also, if you are a UX designer and you're here, if you're interested in the bootcamp that I joined, feel free to check out the link in my description below. I also have a video on my honest review. So now that I knew all the hard skills that I needed to know for this new career, it was time for the final step, which is sharing your knowledge to the world. And I really took everything I learned, not just from the bootcamp, but things outside the bootcamp, like all the books that I read, all the podcasts that I listened to, all the challenges that I did on the weekends,
conferences I attended, networking, hackathons, like
literally everything kind of built up to this moment. And if you're here as an aspiring UX designer, just know that interviewing as a UX designer is completely different from interviewing as an account manager in customer relations. And spoiler alert, it's much harder. So if you're interested in learning more about my journey and how I landed my first UX design job, then I highly recommend that you watch this video next. I also just recently landed a UX design job amidst this crazy market with tech layoffs and hiring freeze and a potential recession and blah, blah, blah. So if you also want to watch a video on how I landed a job during this time, then you're going to want to watch the video in my descriptions below. If you're new here, please do not forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'm wishing you luck, and I'll see you next time.